After completing the redemption mission, I married the male lead, Aiden, and reached the ending. But Aiden's adopted sister came to him after her divorce. She provoked me again and again with absolutely no sense of boundaries. I resisted, argued, and eventually broke down hysterically. But Aiden only told me to stop making a fuss for no reason. You can't go back anymore, can you? After that, I became quiet and obedient. At first, Aiden was pleased that I had finally learned to behave, until he discovered that I had already detached myself from the world long ago, leaving only a robot in my place. He was driven mad by the obedient robot that looked like me. Chapter 1. The entire villa was in chaos. Aiden's face was full of anger. You know perfectly well that Carmen can't swim. Carmen claimed that I pushed her into the pool. The surveillance was broken, and there were no witnesses. I didn't push her. I didn't even touch her. Aiden frowned. Would anyone risk their own life just to frame someone? He had already judged me guilty in his heart. So why bother asking again? I let out a sigh and turned to leave. Aiden grabbed me. Go apologize to Carmen. I felt it was absurd. Why should I? She's living in my house, making trouble for me every day. And now I'm supposed to apologize to her? He said, because you pushed her into the water. I shook him off forcefully. I didn't. Aiden stopped arguing about that and brought up the same old line again. You're both women. Can't you try to understand what she's going through after just getting divorced? Understand? I sneered. How am I supposed to understand a woman who's trying to take my husband? Aiden was provoked by this, and his voice suddenly rose sharply. Paula, she's my sister. I immediately shot back. So what? You're not related by blood. You two could even have perfectly normal children. Aiden stared at me in disbelief. How can you say something like that? Are you deliberately trying to provoke me? Why can't you just behave? You can't go back anymore, can you? My heart skipped a beat, short of breath. I asked, what did you say? Aiden stiffened, realizing he had said the wrong thing. His tone softened a lot. Baby, I didn't mean that. I spoke out of anger. He reached out to hug me. A servant's urgent voice exploded through the air. Sir, Miss Carmen has been crying nonstop. She says she wants to see you. And she also said, the servant glanced at me with difficulty. She says she's going to call the police and accuse Madam of attempted murder. Aiden's hand froze in midair. His face flickered with conflict. But in the end, he strode toward the guest room where Carmen was staying. Chapter 2. I wasn't sure how long I stood there, frozen in place. Aiden's words kept echoing endlessly in my ears. So that was it. He was certain I had no way out. And that was why he felt free to be so reckless and unscrupulous. I had come into this world to fill its vacancy. Back then, after successfully redeeming Aiden and falling in love with him, I told him my true identity. When the mission was completed, the system asked me whether I wanted to return to my original world. Aiden pulled me into his arms and cried, begging me not to leave. At that time, both of us had only each other in our hearts. When I agreed to stay, he looked at me with pure joy and asked me to confirm that I would never leave again. I lied. If I ever faced a life or death crisis, the system would reappear. I hadn't told him that, afraid he would worry. I never expected that he would one day use that very sentence to strike at my weakest point. As I passed by the guest room, I heard Carmen sobbing, saying she was scared. Aiden was comforting her with endless patience, his voice soft and gentle. Your sister-in-law is just being unreasonable. Don't take it to heart. I'll take you out to watch fireworks tonight. Only after saying that did he notice me standing at the doorway. Our eyes met. His lips moved, as if he wanted to say something, but I had already looked away and walked off. Chapter 3. The person in the mirror had dead, hollow eyes, thin, withered, and exhausted. Without hesitation, I raised the knife and stabbed it into my own wrist. Yet my heart hurt even more. As blood rapidly drained from my body, the long silent electronic voice of the system finally returned. Tears slid from my eyes. Long time no see. Wow, you're living this miserably? Hearing that familiar sharp tongue, my tears only fell harder. I was lovesick and stupid back then. Serves me right. Humph. Luckily I applied for this chance for you. So, do you want to leave now? I didn't answer, because I fainted from blood loss. When I woke up again, I was in the hospital. Aiden leaned over me, his eyes bloodshot. Baby, you're finally awake. He grabbed my hand tightly, too tightly, and then his voice broke. You scared me to death. If something's wrong, we can talk it out, okay? Don't ever do this again. Aiden buried his face into my palm, his warm tears soaking into my skin. His entire body trembled slightly from lingering fear. The nurse said someone needed to watch me at all times. Aiden nodded immediately. I'll stay with her, always. A dignified CEO, completely ignoring his tear-streaked face, anxiously promising the doctor. Seeing that, the nurse added, Miss, you need to cherish your life. Your husband was nearly out of his mind. You should have seen what he looked like when it happened. I lowered my eyes and stayed silent. I hadn't seen it myself, but I could imagine it. After all, he had loved me once. Back then, when I got into a car accident saving him, I had seen his hysteria, his panic, and his despair. The memories surfaced again, poking gently at my heart. After all these years together, even if we couldn't part happily, we could at least part peacefully. I suddenly wanted to tell him my last bargaining chip, give him one final chance to choose, to tell him that I really would leave. But before I could speak, Aiden's phone rang. Chapter 4. When he saw the caller ID, his movements paused, and he quickly looked at me. I understood his dilemma and said calmly, Go ahead and answer. Carmen said she had been terrified by the sight of me bleeding all over the bathtub that afternoon. She claimed that my actions had traumatized her, and now she wanted to stab herself once to repay me. Aiden gently coaxed her, telling her not to be afraid, not to do anything foolish. He promised he would go home right away. His voice was soft and patient. I tilted my head back, watching the medication drip slowly from the 4-bag, and called out to him just as he was about to leave. Aiden, you said you would stay with me. He gritted his teeth and promised that after he calmed Carmen down, he would rush back. Within an hour at most. I closed my eyes. Go. When Aiden truly cares about someone, he wishes he could shoulder everything for them. It used to be me. Now it's Carmen. Affection was never something rare. Who he gave it to made no difference. Do you actually believe he'll come back? I didn't answer the system, because the answer was obvious. Just start the detachment program. In 24 hours, you will completely leave this world. To maintain population balance, an intelligent robot will take your place. At 3 in the morning, Carmen sent me a photo. Aiden was sitting by her bed, resting with an exhausted expression, while Carmen, perfectly unharmed, lay comfortably on the blankets. She smiled at the camera and flashed a victory sign. The system scoffed in a sarcastic tone. What? Can't even bring yourself to curse that two-faced manipulative woman anymore? I let out a bitter laugh. I cursed her already. I just don't want to anymore. No matter how Carmen provoked me. In my eyes, she was just a petty clown. The one who truly hurt me was Aiden, his coldness, his favoritism. So there was no point in cursing anymore. Arguing with the wrong person is already losing. The nurse came in to check on me. She looked around the room and asked, Where's your husband? I replied, Dead. Chapter 5. The next day, I handled the discharge procedures on my own. The system reminded me that I had 12 hours left before leaving this world. When I opened the villa's front door, I heard bursts of laughter. Brother, you're so bad at this. You've been killed so many times already. I've never been as smart as Carmen. They were playing a Switch game, the chubby and adorable digital avatars bouncing up and down on the TV screen. My arrival shattered the warmth in the room. Why did you? Aiden abruptly stood up and quickly came over. Concerned. Why did you get discharged already? I asked calmly. Should I have waited for you to come back? He remembered the 1-hour promise he made, and his smile froze stiff. Sister-in-law. Carmen ran over. Are you okay? You really scared me yesterday. I've already forgiven you for pushing me into the water. So please don't ever do something like that again. The housekeepers might be just employees, but cleaning up all that blood is really troublesome and, well, unlucky. I turned to Aiden. You heard that? She said I'm unlucky. Aiden's gaze shifted uneasily. Carmen didn't mean it that way. I wasn't surprised at all by his instinctive favoritism. I lowered my head and let out a soft laugh. Then I shoved Carmen, hard. she screamed as she hit the floor with a heavy thud. I told Aiden. See clearly. Yesterday I didn't touch her. This time, this is what it looks like when I actually push her. Only then did he react, snapping out of shock into anger. You're laying hands on her right in front of me? How dare you? I smiled at him without saying a word. Aiden anxiously picked up the sobbing Carmen. He gently placed her on the couch and immediately rolled up her pant leg to check her injury. Carmen hiccuped through her crying. Brother, I told you, sister-in-law has always been so mean to me. Can you check? Did I break something? Sob. Expressionless. I watched the two of them, closer than siblings should ever be. The system grumbled in my mind. Cry. This household's good fortune is being washed away by her tears. What kind of normal siblings touch each other's legs at this age? Ugh. I watched for a moment, then found it all rather dull. So I offered a suggestion. She landed on her butt. Checking only her leg is useless. The system praised me for being savage. The room fell dead silent. I could even hear the servants inhale sharply. In the suffocating stillness, Aiden turned toward me with not only fury in his eyes, but also a trace of hurt. He threw the medicine bottle in his hand. Liquid splattered everywhere. I headed straight upstairs. Chapter 6. Originally, the system suggested that I stay in the hospital until I left this world. When the time came, the robot could simply take my place and return home. If you don't go back, you can avoid a lot of unnecessary trouble. I agreed, but I still had something to do. I took out the diary I had carefully kept in the cabinet and burned it. When I first arrived in this world, I had been terrified of everything unfamiliar. I wrote the diary to record my life and to remind myself not to forget who I was. Over time, the entries became centered entirely around Aiden's name. Things I once treasured so dearly turned out to be very easy to destroy. As the flames consumed everything, I threw the ashes into the toilet and flushed them away. When Aiden came upstairs with a tray, he smelled the faint scent of burnt paper. What did you burn? Curled up in my favorite recliner, I said. I burned my medical records, so you all won't think they're unlucky. I know you're angry right now, but those things you said earlier, don't say them again. He half knelt in front of me and carefully took my hand. How can you push me away like this? Aiden looked sincere and exhausted, as if he were the one who had been deeply wronged. Baby, I've told you so many times, there's nothing between her and me except a sibling relationship. 8 stitches. I cut him off. You promised the doctor you'd check the wound regularly, and you heard the instructions clearly that she should avoid spicy food. I looked at the tray he brought. Boiled sliced pork in chili oil, red peppers floating in the spicy broth. Carmen's favorite dish. But Aiden, from the moment you walked in until now, you haven't even asked me once whether it hurts. He had taken the time to voice his grievances, and to mention Carmen's difficulties. The only person he couldn't see was me. I looked at him calmly. Do you know? Right now, you make me feel sick. Aiden froze at how blunt that was. He blinked and glanced down at my wrist. Then he spoke softly. Don't talk to me like that. I turned my head away. Then get out. Baby. Having lost all patience, I stood and walked toward the door. Aiden followed quickly, wary, almost as if he feared I might rush downstairs to beat Carmen on the spot. Where are you going? Expressionless. I said. Anywhere that gives you and your beloved Carmen more space. By now, I was truly angry. Originally, I'd only wanted to come back, burn the diary, and quietly prepare to leave this world. But they insisted on shoving their disgust in my face. Unexpectedly, Aiden pushed past me and stepped out first. Then he locked the door from the outside, with a touch of cold anger in his voice. He said, "Stay inside and think. When you're willing to talk properly, then you can come out." I asked, "Are you sure you want to do this?" What I received in return was the sound of his footsteps fading away. I wandered back to the recliner and curled up again, my hands resting loosely on my abdomen. The system informed me that I had 8 hours left before leaving this world. In the final hours, I would fall asleep, so the waiting wouldn't feel too long. I hummed faintly in response, thinking about how Aiden and I had ended up like this. As I pondered, my fingertip brushed across a raised ridge. It was the scar on the back of my hand. The first crack in my memories. Chapter 7. Carmen had just returned after her divorce. to support her and give her face. Aiden specially held a banquet and invited the city's elites. At that time, Carmen also provoked me, showing off how much her brother adored her. In the end, she even toppled the champagne tower. Glass flew everywhere, and the shards cut the back of my hand. Carmen, on the other hand, screamed dramatically, accusing me of pushing her and making her lose face. Around me were whispers and murmurs. In front of me was her tear-streaked, pitiful expression. Aiden walked over quickly, his face dark. He took my hand to examine it, asking if it hurt, muttering to himself that such beautiful hands couldn't be allowed to scar. Carmen was crying so hard she could barely breathe. Yet he didn't look at her even once. He apologized politely to the guests. "I'll take my wife to treat her wound first. Please continue." Then he casually waved someone over and instructed, "Take the young lady to change her clothes." Aiden held my hand and led me upstairs to the lounge, anxiously tending to my wound. He kept asking me over and over whether it hurt. At the time, I was completely love-struck, foolishly, hopelessly in love with him like that. How could I feel any pain? But the next second, I heard him say, "You made Carmen lose face tonight too. Feeling satisfied now?" He spoke with gentleness, yet the words were cold. Carmen's ex-husband caused a huge scene. It's unsafe for her to stay out there on her own. You saw it yourself. She's just a child who hasn't grown up. Baby, from now on, I'll always take your side. Let's let her stay with us for a while. I'll never forget the tone he used when he said those words. And I'll never forget how arrogant Carmen looked when she moved into the villa. Just as I remember clearly that I said she wasn't allowed to move in. Aiden heard me, but chose to ignore it. Chapter 8. Just as the system had said, in the final few hours before leaving this world, I began to grow drowsy. In the haze, I dreamed of the night Aiden confessed to me. That was during the most crucial stage of our startup, busy and broke. Even the romantic fireworks came from leeching off some unknown rich man's beach party. That night, socialites and elites were holding a blazing fire and fireworks event by the shore, shooting fireworks into the sky like they cost nothing. The bright night looked like daylight, the world full of dazzling colors. Aiden swore that one day he would make me someone who lived above others, just like them. When the biggest firework burst overhead, he suddenly turned toward me, cheeks red, and said something quickly. From the shape of his lips, it looked like he said, "I like you." I teased him deliberately. "Aiden, are you confessing?" Aiden didn't expect me to notice. He gave me a flustered glance, then looked away nervously. He let out a soft mem, then pushed down his embarrassment and turned back to meet my gaze. "I dreamed of confessing to you last night, so I decided to say it in real life too. Paula, I'll treat you well. I'll never let you down." In the fading glow of fireworks, his vow felt sacred and burning. Now, beneath the high ceiling of this luxurious villa, half asleep, I heard fireworks again. Their colors reflected faintly in the bedroom window, but in my eyes, they were nothing more than meaningless patches of light. Aiden was in the back garden with Carmen, setting off fireworks. "I love my brother more than anyone in the world," Carmen shouted happily. "As long as Carmen is happy, that's all that matters." Aiden replied warmly. The system clicked its tongue at them again, then began its countdown in my mind. 10, 9, 8, 3, 2, 1. Darkness completely swallowed me. Detachment complete. Congratulations, host. When the robot took my place in the bedroom, the system deliberately released a sharp burst of white light, filling the room for an instant. Downstairs, a sudden dull ache clutched Aiden's heart. He looked up instinctively toward the bedroom. Carmen, smiling, tilted her head only to see hesitation clouding Aiden's face. Suppressing her resentment, she asked nervously, "Brother, did we wake sister-in-law from her rest?" Aiden snapped back to reality and gave her a gentle, indulgent smile. "I'll go comfort her later. You just enjoy yourself." When he agreed to the fireworks, Aiden had actually been worried about Paula. She had just been discharged. If she fell asleep and got startled awake, would she be scared? But he also wanted Paula to reflect on her behavior. Recently, she had repeatedly targeted Carmen and had even resorted to something as extreme as attempting suicide. Paula's hysteria made Aiden feel unfamiliar with her, even tired, even angry. so he didn't check on her, choosing instead to set off fireworks for his sister. It was, in his mind, a response to Paula's recent actions, yet it brought him no satisfaction. The fireworks burst beautifully before his eyes, but all he could think about was that flash of white light from the bedroom earlier. When the fireworks ended, he rushed upstairs. He ran into a servant coming out with a tray. "Did she eat?" Aiden asked, somewhat relieved and then worried as he saw the empty dishes. "Did she eat too much? What if her stomach hurts again?" The servant hesitated, then said, "But sir, Madam didn't eat anything all day before this. She was probably starving." Aiden froze. He had forgotten. He was the one who had locked her in the bedroom. From the afternoon until now, he snapped at the servant. "So you all just let her starve?" The servant lowered their head, not daring to speak. Aiden pushed open the bedroom door quickly and saw Paula washing up. With only one hand available, she struggled a little. Strands of hair kept falling over her cheek. He walked over and gently held her hair aside for her. Paula looked at him through the mirror and smiled. "Thank you." Her distance felt unfamiliar to Aiden. Instinctively, he thought she was still upset. "Baby, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." He didn't finish. He only held her hand. This time, she didn't pull away. Paula said, "I was the one being unreasonable before. You don't need to apologize." She finally said it. He should have been happy. But strangely, a heavy weight pressed on his chest. That night, Aiden held her as they fell asleep. "Baby, I'll treat you even better from now on. Let's live our life peacefully." He heard her whisper back, "Okay, I believe you." Only then did Aiden relax. She had come around. That was all that mattered. Chapter 9. The house became much quieter. Paula no longer confronted anyone aggressively, nor did she argue with Carmen anymore. She even took the initiative to show concern for her sister-in-law. "It's going to get cold soon. I've arranged for someone to buy you some warm clothes." Terrified, Carmen grabbed Aiden and insisted that her sister-in-law was trying to harm her again. But Aiden disagreed gently with his sister. "Don't always assume the worst of her." Aiden felt genuinely happy. His wife finally displayed the grace a sister-in-law should have. He thought perhaps Paula had finally understood the difficulties he had been dealing with. But everything began to change quietly. That day, Aiden came home exhausted, casually complaining that someone in a project was engaging in malicious competition. In the past, Paula would have exploded on the spot. She would cup his face with a grin and say, "Oh no, look at our precious one, your face is all wrinkled up like crumpled paper. Wait here, I'm calling to curse them out immediately." Then Aiden would hold down his outraged wife, laughing and crying at once, saying that person was still technically a client. Paula would get even angrier. "So what? No one gets to bully you. Relax. I've got connections." But now, she simply handed him a cup of hot tea with a gentle smile. "There will always be ups and downs. Just take things slowly." Then she added, "By the way, Carmen accidentally broke our wedding photo today, so I sent it out for restoration. Thankfully, none of the broken glass cut her." Aiden stared blankly at the steaming cup of tea in his hands, yet suddenly felt an emptiness inside. Chapter 10. It was a rare day off, and because Carmen had developed psychological issues due to domestic violence from her ex-husband, Aiden took her for a scheduled checkup. Unexpectedly, they ran into Paula at the hospital. Their eyes met, and Aiden abruptly remembered. Today was the day Paula was supposed to have her stitches removed. Guilt surged over him like a drowning tide. He walked toward Paula awkwardly, unsure of where to begin. Paula glanced at the payment slip in his hand, then looked at Carmen. "How are Carmen's test results today? Any improvement?" Carmen said her condition was still bad, so she might need to stay longer at the villa, and she needed her brother with her. Paula nodded. "The villa is your home. You can stay as long as you need." Aiden was stunned. He didn't know when she had become this magnanimous. Chapter 11. Later, Carmen pulled Aiden along to play video games. Paula was sitting in the living room, drinking tea. "Sister-in-law, you don't understand games anyway. Why don't you go to the home theater downstairs and watch your romance shows?" Aiden instinctively thought Paula would get angry this time, but she simply stood up and even wished them fun. Helping his sister recover, step by step, was Aiden's responsibility and also gave him a sense of accomplishment. So in the past, Whenever he played these time-wasting games, it always felt worth it to him. But now, he found himself distracted, thinking, why is Paula so well-behaved now? Later, Carmen said she wanted to remove the useless decorative items on the TV wall so she could replace it with a much bigger screen. Aiden deliberately told her to ask Paula. All those handmade dolls were crafted by Paula for each anniversary. She would definitely be angry about it. But Aiden waited all day at work and never received a call from Paula. When he went home, the wall cabinets and the dolls were all gone. A brand new, huge screen hung across the wall. It was the first time Aiden felt he was losing control. He slowly looked at Paula. Baby, where are the dolls? She replied, the garbage truck took them this afternoon. Aiden's voice trembled. Why did you throw them away? She said quietly, didn't you agree to it? Chapter 12. Does blood loss or getting stitches affect a person's brain? In a bar, Aiden swirled his glass and asked his close friend. His friend replied with implication. I don't know about stitches messing with your head, but cheating definitely does. Aiden's gaze darkened. What do you mean? His friend scoffed and showed him his phone. On the screen was Carmen's newest 9-photo grid update. In the very center was a picture of her in a swimsuit, clinging to Aiden's arm. It was taken 2 days ago, when Aiden took his sister to the hot springs. Aiden, I've known you and Paula for years. Even I feel disgusted seeing this kind of dirty thing. Imagine how your wife must feel. Do you know what everyone in the circle is saying about you now? Did you forget who helped you build your current network? Aiden insisted he and Carmen were just siblings, and had never crossed the line. His friend laughed. You think it only counts as crossing the line if you sleep together? Aiden, I'm disappointed in you. Honestly, I should have married Paula back then. Aiden exploded. You still think about her. His friend slammed the glass. She's that good, why wouldn't I? Paula's perfect. The only mistake she ever made was choosing you. They got into a fight. Aiden returned home bruised, swollen, and drunk. Paula hated seeing him drunk. She would always scold him. Aiden, are you trying to die? Then she would force him to drink hangover soup, and the next day make sure he took liver protection medicine. Aiden always said she was troublesome, but now, the hangover soup was still ready at home, and Paula was still waiting for him on the sofa. Yet she only smiled gently and said, you must be tired from socializing. She helped him to bed and placed the hangover soup at his bedside. Aiden didn't move for a long time, as if waiting for something, but all he heard was her saying, if you don't want to drink it, that's fine. Get some rest. Aiden called her, baby. Yes? Aiden blurted out, I love you. She smiled, I love you too. Aiden grew anxious. I'm hurt. Paula examined him for a moment and asked, does it hurt? But in her eyes, there was no affection, no genuine concern. It hurt. Aiden's chest hurt. Coldness spread from his fingertips, drilling straight into his heart. The Paula before him was incredibly considerate, the perfect wife. Understanding, gracious, well-behaved, like a machine. Chapter 13. I am a robot. I move between different worlds, carrying out finalization tasks. The system says I'm a semi-defective product, unable to adapt, which makes me perfect for husband-chasing angst stories where the man suffers emotionally. I don't understand, so I classify that as praise. The system implanted instructions in me to be a gentle and deeply devoted wife. As a gentle wife, I should treat my husband as the center of my world. I follow that directive strictly. The moment I arrived in this world, I obtained all of the original host's memories, enough for normal communication. I can analyze the emotional state of the role I'm supposed to play. In the beginning, Aiden was always relaxed and happy, but recently, he's become difficult to calculate. Using human vocabulary, he is acting irrationally. For example, eating meals. The original host preferred light, clear soups, while Carmen preferred spicy and stimulating foods. And Carmen always had to compete over how many dishes matched her tastes on the table. The original host often argued with her over this, and then Aiden would accuse the original host of being inconsiderate, of arguing with her sister-in-law over trivial things. I do not argue. I am gentle, no matter whether we eat at home or outside. Even when it's just me and Aiden, I always order spicy dishes to fill the table, leaving only a bowl of plain broth with rice for myself. But then Aiden became upset. He asked how I could possibly get full like that, and asked if I was now deliberately trying to go against him. Then, without waiting for my response, he ordered a pot of seafood stew for me. That was a problem. When I did not eat it for a long time, he asked why, but the seafood stew was tied to a deeply ingrained memory in the original host. Previously, on the original host's birthday, Aiden had hired an expensive chef to prepare a home banquet. Seafood stew was one of the dishes, but Carmen cried, saying she was allergic to seafood, and complained that the whole table of dishes was too plain, insisting the original host was deliberately targeting her. She cried endlessly, and in the end, Aiden abandoned the original host and took Carmen out for hot pot. The original host smashed the entire table of food in anger. That night, Carmen cut her foot on a broken dish. Aiden dragged the original host, who had finally cried herself to sleep, out of bed and forced her to apologize to Carmen. The original host refused, so Aiden pushed her head down. Everyone was furious that night. So, in my functional logic, eating seafood stew equals makes Aiden angry, equals leads to apologizing to Carmen. That cannot happen. I must not let Aiden become angry. So I smiled and told him, I can't eat it. Because the last time, on my birthday, seafood stew caused a very unpleasant situation. I added, from now on, I won't eat seafood stew, and I won't celebrate birthdays either, and you won't have to go through the trouble of forcing my head down to make me apologize to Carmen again. Aiden's eyes instantly reddened. I saw his hand tremble as he held his chopsticks. Then he begged me not to treat him like this. I didn't understand where his sadness came from. But as long as he wasn't angry, that was all that mattered. Chapter 14. Carmen broke my necklace again. Sister-in-law, please don't be mad. I just wanted to try it on. I didn't know it was that fragile. I didn't care. After all, it was merely a few metal pieces holding together some carbon crystals. I even comforted her. It's fine. We can try to repair it. And if it can't be fixed, we can just throw it away. Don't worry. But Aiden suddenly grabbed me hard. Paula, this is the necklace you wore at our wedding. I looked at him, frantically calculating why he was upset again. I didn't understand how a person could be angry and sad at the same time. He immediately decided to take me to repair the necklace and insisted on buying me new jewelry. Carmen cried and said she wanted to come too. Aiden told her no, but I cheerfully agreed. Why would that be a problem? While staring absent-mindedly at the plants at the jewelry store entrance, I was still unable to compute why Aiden was angry. Aiden anxiously asked the clerk how long the repair would take. Brother, look, aren't these earrings pretty? Carmen wrapped her arm around his and rested her head on his shoulder. The clerk covered her mouth with a smile, saying they were such an affectionate couple. My head snapped up immediately. I had seen this scene before, on Chichi Festival this year. The original host had dragged Aiden out to pick an anniversary gift. Aiden was distracted, while Carmen kept asking whether things looked good. The clerk complimented them for being loving. Carmen giggled and didn't deny it. Aiden's rebuttal came 30 seconds late. The original host erupted on the spot and said they might as well get a divorce. Aiden got angry too, accusing her of making a scene and overreacting. I formed a conclusion. Denying that he and Carmen look good together equals triggers Aiden's anger. Now that the scene was repeating itself, I rushed to speak before Aiden could respond. Yes, the two of them look very well matched. Aiden snapped his head toward me. Paula! His voice was incredibly loud. His anger level maxed out. I once again failed to understand why he was angry. But fortunately, I am eager to learn. So I asked him seriously, seeking clarification. The last time someone said you two looked affectionate, I denied it, and you said, in public, that a wife like me was disgraceful. And before that, whenever people mentioned it, you mostly didn't deny it. Isn't that true? So now that I'm not denying it, why are you angry? Aiden stared at me with reddened eyes. For a very, very long time. Chapter 15. After that, he began watching me, whether he had something to do or not. His eyes were on me. He even stopped going to the company, choosing to work from home instead. Just like the original host, I sat in the living room watching dramas on a tablet. Aiden sat on the armchair opposite me. Carmen came over carrying watermelon to give him. Perhaps the floor was too slippery. In short, she fell right onto Aiden. Her lace skirt fanned out around her thighs as she let out a soft cry, her arms wrapping around Aiden's shoulders. The scene was indecent enough to be censored. In the past, Carmen fell often, sometimes clinging, sometimes hugging, and every time, the original host would get furious, which would then make Aiden displeased. He would accuse the original host of being narrow-minded, of having filthy thoughts. According to the statistics in the original host's memories, she had actually considered divorce many times, thinking it would be easier to live peacefully alone in this world instead of constantly being tormented. And the peak moments when she thought of divorce always occurred during intimate incidents between the siblings. I could no longer compute Aiden properly, so I decided to speak less and do less. I continued watching my show, but then Aiden suddenly spoke. "Paula." I looked over obediently. "Yes?" His voice and his entire body were taut. "You're not going to do anything?" I blinked. "Do anything about what?" "About me." Aiden abruptly stood up, and Carmen screamed as she fell to the floor, but he walked straight toward me, grabbing my shoulders and shouting, "Can't you see? She's dressed like that, sitting on your man's lap. You're not going to do anything?" The scene became bizarre. I followed my programmed task faithfully. In the past, whenever you two hugged or touched, I would get angry, and you always told me not to make a fuss. You said you two were just siblings, so I thought it was fine for her to sit on you like that. This was factual, but it seemed he especially disliked hearing facts from me. Aiden's jaw and lips trembled. We're not blood related." "You said that." "Paula." "Yell at me." "Why won't you yell at me?" I could not understand. "You told me to be a gentle wife. A gentle wife shouldn't restrain her husband, right?" Aiden, furious, ordered people to pack up Carmen's things and kick her out. No matter how Carmen begged, he refused to let her stay. Aiden then dragged me to the hospital for a full body examination, especially a brain scan. Although I am a semi-defective robot, the defective part only affects computational processing. My physical form is fine. Naturally, they found nothing wrong. Aiden then took me to a psychiatrist, the same doctor who had treated the original host. The doctor asked why I had stopped taking antidepressants. According to the original host's memories, ever since Carmen moved in, she developed depression and had even shown Aiden her medical results. But Aiden said mental illnesses weren't something to joke about and told her not to compare herself to Carmen in everything. As for why I didn't pick up the medication after that, I explained to the doctor. I slit my wrist that time, so I wasn't able to come. The doctor didn't seem to understand what I meant and asked me to repeat it. I complied immediately. This time, the doctor looked at Aiden beside me. "You're her husband? Do you know your wife has severe depression?" At her last appointment, she was already showing physical symptoms. Why weren't you paying attention to her treatment? You should have reminded her to pick up her medication. Worried Aiden would get angry. I quickly explained for him. He saw my test results. He just thought I was joking, so he didn't remind me. The doctor shouted at Aiden several times. "Severe depression, extremely high suicide risk. Patients live in pain every day. And you thought she was joking? She slit her wrist and you still didn't think to bring her for medication?" I quietly added. He was busy playing video games with another girl at the time. The doctor's expression became complicated, something beyond my ability to calculate. Finally, in front of Aiden, he handed me a business card for a divorce lawyer. Aiden said nothing. He simply stared at the medical reports with a pale face. Chapter 16. After all the chaos, by the time we got home, the sun had already set. I returned to the sofa and picked up my tablet to continue watching dramas. Unexpectedly, Aiden dragged a chair over and sat right in front of me. It startled the robot. I quickly analyzed whether he was angry. The result showed he was only sad, so I smiled gently and asked him what was wrong. His voice was hoarse. "Where did she go?" "Who? Carmen?" Aiden pulled out a twisted, painful smile, and then hot tears slid down his face. "Paula, my wife. She, choking." He asked, "Where did she go?" I smiled and told him I was right here, but he grabbed my shoulders tightly. Aiden yelled at me. He screamed that I wasn't Paula, then sucked in a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. "Sorry, I lost control. I just He spoke in broken, trembling sentences, then suddenly stopped mid-word. He snapped his head up and asked, "Were you sent by the system?" I tilted my head. "To be precise, I'm here to replace Paula. I have all her memories and all of yours, and I will execute your requirement for a gentle wife with 100% compliance. In theory, to you, I am Paula now." The system allowed a robot to reveal its identity if asked, so I answered truthfully. But as soon as Aiden heard this, his body collapsed, his pupils contracted, and he reached out a trembling hand toward me, yet pulled back before touching me. Tears spilled out as Aiden let out a cry of pure despair. Then he completely broke down and ordered someone to bring Carmen back immediately. During this time, he pulled up the villa's surveillance recordings from the past weeks. He discovered that almost every single day, the original host had been framed or slandered, and every single time, Aiden had sided with Carmen. Realizing this, he saw himself as a clown. His expression looked so terrible I genuinely feared he might faint on the spot. "Brother, I knew you couldn't bear to be apart from me." Carmen rushed in like an excited butterfly, but this butterfly was grabbed by the throat, Aiden's hand squeezing tightly. "Why did you deliberately drive a wedge between Paula and me?" Carmen struggled to breathe, gasping out words. "I didn't." Aiden's eyes were icy, fingers pressing harder, turning her face purple. "I saw the surveillance, all of it. I pitied you, felt sorry for you, let you move in, and you schemed against my wife." Carmen's expression went blank for a moment, then twisted into shame and ugliness, and then she suddenly burst into laughter. "Yes, I did it. So what? You enjoyed my admiration, that's why you indulged me. What right do you have to be angry now? Is all of this my fault alone? You were a willing accomplice." Aiden's hand trembled and he flung her aside. Even on the floor, Carmen kept spewing venom, even when she slit her wrist. "All I had to do was cry and you stayed with me. Now you remember to be devoted? How dare you blame me? If you had cared about her, how would I have had the chance to interfere?" Carmen suddenly threw her head back and laughed, then turned toward me. "Paula, did you know? On the very first day he took me back home, we Aurea, MMPH." Her remaining words were smothered by Aiden's hand. He ordered the servants to drag her to the swimming pool and make her drink until she choked. Chapter 17. He stood there in a daze for a long time, then finally straightened his hair and collar before turning toward me. He forced out an ugly smile. He said, "See? I've dealt with Carmen. I know I was wrong. I found it strange. Correcting chaos and righting your mistakes is what you should be doing." He shook his head and grabbed the sleeve of my shirt tightly. "I'll accept any punishment, just let me see her once." "Where is she? Take me to her. Take me, please. I'm begging you." I shook my head. "You're the one who didn't want to see her." Aiden stared at me blankly. I told him, the original host's body is already dead. She originally wanted to stay in this world. But in the end, she chose to leave. When she chose to detach from this world, you were downstairs setting off fireworks with Carmen after locking her inside the bedroom. If you truly wanted to see her, why would you have done that? But it's fine now. I won't care whether you want to see me or not. You'll have a gentle wife forever. Funny, isn't it? Aiden truly cannot handle the truth. Watching him curl up on the floor, sobbing until his voice broke, begging hoarsely, I realized something. I seem to have driven another male lead insane. It's strange. I often handle aftermath for transmigrators who fail their romantic missions. The stories differ, but all the men share one thing in common. When the original host is still alive, they take her love for granted, as if blind. They never see her efforts or grievances. No matter how many tears she sheds or how many times she breaks down, it's dismissed as making a fuss. The male lead is always busy with his career, with a white moonlight, with another ambiguous woman. But the moment the original host becomes disheartened enough to detach, and I take over the world, the male lead goes mad. I have no emotions. I don't cry for them. I have nothing to give them. Yet they start weeping, begging, asking where the original host went. Some even pull their hair out, as if they could tear themselves free from their grief that way. The pain the original host endured day and night, they cannot withstand even a moment of it. They are the ones who abandoned her. Yet they are the ones who cannot bear being abandoned. I informed the system that the male lead has gone mad again. And the mission has failed. Chapter 18. When the system informed me that Aiden had been admitted to a psychiatric hospital, I was lying on a beach chair by the sea, sunbathing. I had transmigrated because of a car accident. And when I chose to give up returning to my original world, my physical body died. Now, I simply drift aimlessly in the system's world. Everything in front of me was eternal. The waves moved in fixed rhythms. The sky was forever tinted orange and pink. There was no time, no pain, and no one I needed to love. Hey, at least react a little. The system lay on the beach chair beside mine in her true form. She looked like a young girl in a floral shirt and shorts, sunglasses lazily perched on her face. Nothing like the powerful entity who governed countless novel worlds. Aiden went crazy. Don't you feel satisfied? It doesn't matter anymore. I stared at a cloud that would never move, but she insisted on showing me. An electronic screen unfolded before us. On it, Aiden sat beside a hospital bed, eyes empty. The walls were covered with photos of me. Every remaining inch of space outside the photos was filled with written apologies. He asked every person he saw whether they had seen his wife. Doctors told him his wife was at home, and that would trigger him into a frenzy as he screamed, "That's not her! She's fake! She's fake!" The system waved her hand, and the screen vanished. I was slightly surprised. He actually went insane to this extent. The system lifted her chin proudly. See? I told you that special robot of mine is impressive. All other task-executing robots are just lines of code. But this one I call the soul-exposing mirror. Oh, and by the way, Carmen didn't end well either. She was punished by Aiden first. Later, her ex-husband found her. Turns out she was being abused because she cheated. Now that she's lost her protection, he dragged her back quickly. I shook my head lightly. At first, I didn't make a big scene because I pitied her for being abused. For me, no matter the reason, there is no excuse for domestic violence. That was one of the few sincere bits of kindness I ever felt for Carmen, and she ignored it completely, insisting on pushing me again and again. So now, I felt no sympathy for her, and no longer thought of Aiden at all. The system swayed proudly, but then clicked her tongue. But not everyone is like you, willing to detach. Most insist on staying in that world and living a life worse than death. I said calmly, everyone makes different choices. So what are you planning next? Will you ever love again? She asked. I blurted, love. My ass. The system burst out laughing, nearly falling off her chair. How about you stay and work as a system with me? I looked at her. She removed her sunglasses, revealing amber-colored eyes, and held out her hand to me. Well, what do you think?